Bye.
Why?
Bye.
Why?
Well, folks, it is that time of year again. See, if you're a film critic who does not live in the city of Los Angeles or doesn't attend one of the many major film festivals around the world each year, there's going to be at least a handful of movies you're not going to be able to see until way later in the year after hearing about it for months from various critics who did manage to go to all of those screenings. And by the time you finally sit down and watch it, it just bounces right off of you. For me, last year, it was The Brutalist, a film that I thought was okay. I remember putting in my final year-end review that it was a film you felt like you had to endure rather than enjoy, and I swear to God, I have not heard a single person bring it up since the Oscar season. And I think I might have found this year's installment in another presumed Academy Award contender, Hamnet. Directed by Chloe Zhao and based on the Maggie O'Farrell novel, she also wrote the screenplay for this, the film is a mostly fictional retelling of William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway's marriage and the emotional turmoil both felt after the death of their 11-year-old son, Hamnet. Since old Billy Shakes no longer does interviews on account of being dead for nearly 400 years and record-keeping of the Elizabethan era not being that great, there are plenty of quirks about Shakespeare's plays and personal life that scholars have been debating for centuries, and the film attempts to fill in those gaps with its own answers. Why do so many of his plays contain fantasy elements? Why does one of his most prolific plays have the same name as his son? What effect, if any, did Hamlet's death have on his father's work? And why was the ghost of Hamlet's father one of the only roles Shakespeare himself was known to have played on stage? Essentially, it's Shakespeare fan fiction, though to the film's credit, it doesn't try to beat its chest and claim some sort of historical accuracy. And while advertising has leaned heavily on the, hey look, another adaptation of Shakespeare's life, it's not really. It's much more concerned with Jessie Buckley as Hathaway, depicted in the film as a healer with a vague supernatural connection with nature, none of which has any historical context, by the way. I will say if the film deserves to be in the award season conversation, it's on the back of her performance. She gets the full emotional arc, has big dramatic moments involving multiple childbirths and her son's death, and has dealt with the crushing frustration of being choked by the mundanity of modern English living, at least for the time, while her husband's playwright pursuits are kept mostly off screen and at arm's length. It's only at the 90-minute mark, when a particular scene involving Paul Mescal's William, you'll know it exactly when you see it, finally gets to show off how he's been processing the loss of his son, that the film finally kicks into a higher gear. And to its credit, it stays that way up through the ending, but that's mostly because they just start outright quoting Shakespeare. I don't know, that feels a bit like cheating. The last 20-ish minutes are an abridged version of the Hamlet stage play inside a recreation of the Globe Theater. No, not that one. And while that's where Mescal and Buckley's performances shine the brightest, once again, it doesn't feel right to credit a movie for simply recreating one of the most famous plays of all time, especially after a frustratingly dull opening 90 minutes. Admittedly, Buckley does a solid job, and between this and The Bride, it feels like her star is on the rise here in Hollywood. But given how there are so many different interpretations on screen of Shakespeare's life and his works, this definitely isn't one you need to rush out and see. See you guys next time.